I think this college football season is really interesting because I think we are going to see a lot of established names having to prove themselves here in 2025. But to prove my point, I want to give to you quickly the coach in each Power Four conference with the most approved here in 2025. And you're going to hear a few big names that not that long ago were at the top or near the top of the sport that are now trying to prove themselves to get back to that upper echelon of coaching respect. So let's start here in the Big Ten. I think it's really interesting. I think the coach of the most approved in the Big Ten, it's Luke Fickell. Remember, when this guy took Cincinnati to the College World Playoff back in 2020 and was hired a few years later at Wisconsin, he was hired to launch the Badgers into the upper echelon of the conference, compete with Ohio State and Oregon and Penn State, beat them, go to the playoff routinely. And so far in his tenure there, they've gone the other way. I mean, you look at Wisconsin right now, they're closer to Purdue than they are Ohio State. Luke Fickell's got a lot to prove this season. He's 13-13 so far in his 2 years in Madison. The Badgers last year went 5-7. That's their first losing season since 2001. So again, forget about not being able to compete with Ohio State and Michigan right now. He can't even get this team consistently in a bowl game. He set new lows for mediocrity in a program that has been very consistent. Remember, just a few years ago, he was viewed, I think rightfully so, as a top 10 coach in the sport. He helped take Cincinnati, the only group of 5 team ever in the 4-team format, to make the College World Playoff. He got him there. He was 57-18 in his 6 years in Cincinnati. He was a successful, winning coach. And now you look at him, he's not even top 10 in the conference going into 2025. It's been quite the fall from grace right now for Luke Fickell. And I think he has a lot to prove this season to be able to get that respect that he once had back. And the other reason why I think it's a huge year for him, he's got a lot to prove, is because when he was hired, not only was he hired, or I should say maybe in part he was hired to compete with the big boys by modernizing Wisconsin's offense, right? It's not like Wisconsin was bad. They routinely made the Big Ten title game. They won the Big Ten West. The problem was they didn't have a modern offense. It was run the ball, play great defense to compete and score with Ohio State, Michigan, and then with Alabama and the likes in trying to win a championship. So Fickell was brought in there to modernize Wisconsin. He brought in an air raid system, and that failed miserably. Didn't have the talent. Couldn't recruit the talent. Did not work. So it's interesting because now going to year 3, he's changing philosophies and almost going back to what Wisconsin was trying to get away from, which is ground and pound. He hired Jeff Grimes. They're going to be more of a run-first styled offense. So you're kind of going back to the old school Wisconsin that they were hoping to get away from when they hired Fickell in the first place. This is a fascinating season for Wisconsin. I think this year is going to dictate how the next 5 years of Badgers football goes. Now, they got a murderer's row schedule, tough conference schedule, plus you're on the road at Alabama early in the year. I think this could be a lot like Florida season in the sense of, if you go back to last year for Florida, right, with Billy Napier on the hot seat, that was a tough schedule. And even though the win total was not great, they barely made a bowl game, Billy Napier kept his job because he won a few big games and gave hope that the future will be better. Same thing here. Like, I think for Luke Fickell, it's not about win total. I think it's how do you compete in these big games? Can you give the fan base hope that, hey, the direction of this program is turning? If there's no improvement, it's hard to believe the Luke Fickell era in Madison will ever get off the ground. It's not about win total, but can you compete? I think Luke Fickell here, with what he used to be versus what he is now, he, to me, by far, the coach of the Big Ten with the most approved here in 2025. Let's go to the SEC. Coach of the most approved, Hugh Freeze at Auburn. So far, Hugh Freeze's Auburn tenure, basically, he's Brian Harsin 2.0. There's not much of a difference. And so far, I've been wrong about Freeze. He was a very controversial hire. I was in support of it because I thought what he would do was go to Auburn, get to the Plains, and immediately turn around that offense and make it one of the best in the conference overnight. And so far, that's not been the case. Last year, they were 12th in terms of points per game in the conference out of 16. The year before that, they were 13th. The offense has been so hard to watch. Now, to his credit, gives Hugh Freeze a little credit here. He's done a good job recruiting. Back-to-back top 10 classes. He was able to land 5-star quarterback Deuce Knight, able to flip him from Notre Dame. Big get for Hugh. He's also able in the transfer portal to land former 5-star quarterback Jackson Arnold. But what I just told you, the recruiting class, the success in the transfer portal, that's why I think Freeze has so much to prove this year, because the excuses are out the window. There's no more Peyton Thorne At quarterback, Robbie Ashford. You got a real talent in Arnold. You got a real talent behind him in Deuce Knight. You have talented receivers in Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons. The patience, the excuses are gone. There's no reason why Auburn this year can't have a top 5 offense in the conference. They got the talent. Hugh got his quarterback now. Now it's do or die. It's make or break. No excuse for Auburn this year. I think Hugh Freeze has got to, at least bare minimum offensively, put on a show that Tiger fans have not seen in a long, long time. This is a huge year. He desperately needs to get the offense going. If not, he's in trouble. He's in boiling water down there in Auburn. If this offense yet again is sluggish, is stagnant, is unimaginative, and we're looking at Auburn having another 5-6 win season with 2 or 3 wins in the conference, Hugh Freeze will be in boiling water if that just happened. That's why, for me, he's a coach in the SEC and the most to prove. Speaking of boiling water, this coach is probably in it right now. So he's got a lot to prove coming off of a horrendous season. If we go to the ACC, it's Mike Norvell of Florida State. I mean, again, 2 years ago, this guy was 13-0 on the brink of making the college football playoff. And now 2 years later, not even a year and a half later, we're talking about him with the most to prove. That in part shows how bad, how disappointing last year was. 2-10? 2-10. We're competitive. We're an embarrassment every single week. This was once a proud program. That was a laughing stock. And now, the reason why Mike Norvell, I mean, partly because of that 2-10 season, which is so bad, that I think it wiped away a lot of the good that the 13-0 start had to 2023. But also part of the reason why I think Norvell has the most to prove here of any coach in the ACC is because the mediocrity he's had for a majority of his FSU tenure, I think force him, gives him no chance but to have a huge year in 2025 or he's screwed. Think about it, right? When he was hired a few years ago, he was hired to make FSU relevant in terms of the national championship race again, which they were not now for a while. And he was brought to compete for championships. And the way Jimbo Fisher did, at least for most of the tenure, so kind of the ending was not great. But right, for the most of Jimbo's tenure, that team was in the race, in the picture, in the hunt. You said their name when talking about the national title race. That's not been the case. I mean, hell, 3 of the 5 years Norvell's been there, this team's missed a bowl game. They're nowhere close to the national title picture. Those standards are not okay for Florida State. It's not okay to go 8-4, 9-3. This team's got to win, I think, bare minimum 10 games here in 2025. It's a high bar. They start with Alabama. That's a really tough game. I'm not picking them to win that game. But Norvell, with how bad last year was, and so far, again, a majority of his tenure has been in Tallahassee, he's given himself no choice. That 13-1 season is out the window. That feels like 10 years ago, not 2. That's how bad last year was, and that's how bad a majority of his tenure's been. He needs a huge bounce back way in the biggest way possible. Here in 2025, there's no pressure, or there's no coach, I should say, in the ACC, more to prove in 2025 than a guy just 2 years ago went undefeated and won his conference in the regular season. You rarely see that, but that is what's, I think, so intriguing about this season. And then if we go to the Big 12, this is the most intriguing. This is the most interesting because on paper, there's no name that sticks out to you. There's no obvious choice. But I went with Joey McGuire of Texas Tech. And you know what's funny and ironic is he's done a really good job in Lubbock so far through the first 3 years. He has 23 wins in those first 3 seasons. That's tied with Mike Leach for the most in program history through a coach's first 3 seasons. So you may be thinking, Ryan, how the hell, for a guy that's doing and putting up record program numbers, how could you say he's the most approved? Here's why. Money in Lubbock has changed expectations. CBS Sports this week reported that Tech is going to spend $55 million on athletics this season. Let me just repeat that, just for emphasis. $55 million Texas Tech will spend in their athletic department on players just this season. Expected a majority of that, right, to be used for football. So when that amount of money is involved, the patience meter, the patience level is at 0. Gone are the days of 8 wins, 9 wins, we're building. It is now win right now, overnight. Literally, this money came in. Now it's Big 12 title game or bust. go to Dallas. That's the goal. Now, again, I think they're capable of doing it. I think Joe McGuire is a good coach, number one. He's done a good job so far building this roster. We've seen that influx of cash already help out Tech this offseason, where they did a good job of addressing their offensive line in the portal, their defensive line, shoring up a secondary that was Swiss cheese last year. So, like, you're seeing now instant dividends in terms of this influx of money for NIL. So he's got the talent. I think they have a top 3 roster right now in the Big 12. Big 12 is wide open. So it's both easy to get there. Well, not easy, but it's attainable to get there. But also, there's a lot of teams bunched together where we just saw this as a conference member last year that saw Arizona State win the conference when they were picked to be the last in 2024. It's wide open. Texas Tech, though, I think is very capable of doing it. But now when you have the greatest NIL resource budget, at least in college football for 2025, again, expectations now are raised. The bar now is championships. So now it's Big 12 title game or bust. That's what I think Joe McGuire is the most to prove here. Because while the NIL budget is great and you want all the resources possible, that money changes expectations. So now the goal is bare minimum, get to Dallas, which I think is why Joe McGuire has the most to prove. So McGuire in the Big 12, most approved of Texas Tech. Mike Norvell in the ACC, most approved. SEC is Hugh Freeze. Big 10 is Luke Fickell. Any disagreements here? Please jump in the comments. I'd love to go back and forth, hear what you have to think in terms of the coach of the most approved in each conference. If this is the first time checking us out, really do appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe. We got a lot of football, college football content coming your way all summer long. Then really going in the left lane, if you will, going to overdrive once the regular season does commence. So check out the channel. Make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Ryan_Hickey3. I'm on social media, Instagram, and TikTok, The Ryan Hickey Show. We're all over the map, talking college football, your favorite sport, my favorite sport. We'll chat soon.